Hey, everybody, you are watching the We Are Rising podcast. This is Andrew Benjamin, your host. With us, we have returning guest Daniel D. Bobakura from Poland. But my eyes, uh, do they deceive me? Is that the mysterious King Silo?
Hey guys, Jay Wolf's just been talking so much trash in the Rizin Discord that I figured I eventually had to get on one of these live streams with you guys.
Are you gonna be his yin to? You're gonna be his yin to his yang, or however it
I
goes.
guess you could say that.
But I mean, well, we were going to be talking about Ryzen, obviously, and King Zero. I think you should be the one to explain this. What makes Ryzen FF stand out top 25 list?
Yeah, so we just wanted to go over a little breakdown of the things that makes Rising unique. There's a reason why JMMA fans exist. There's way more MMA than ever before, but there's a reason why promotions such as Ryzen draw us into it. So this little PowerPoint slide that I put together, we'll go over some of those factors that I think makes the promotion stand out.
Mm, great, great. And we're going to start. We're going to do it's 25. It's going to do an increment of five, not including the honorable mentions. Now, I have seen the list, and Daniel's seen the list, but as far as I know, the general public has not. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've just been hinting at it in the Ryzen Discord, that little select group of like 20 or so Ryzen fans.
20 or so Rising fans and me. So yes, we're gonna get right to this list right here. Honorable mentions. Oh my God, you got something on mention. Weight miss no contest. All fights received the pre-fight face-off treatment. Referee cam. Legends on commentary like Kawajiri, Fuji, and Ruma Sato. Ringside bell. Japanese culture shot of mascots and idol performances. Now let's get to number 25. Pay-per-view events don't have minutes of commercials, unlike places like UFC and many others. Number 24, 12 to 6 elbows, which, as we all know, was the lone loss to John
John
Jones's
Jones and Matt
perfect.
Hamill.
Yep. Promotional posters, which I think is a clear that it doesn't need to be explained. Post fights. So as you say here, no post fight interviewer. They just they hand the microphone off to the fighter, and the fighter mouths off. Sometimes with passionate stuff like Chihiro Suzuki, or insane stuff like Charles Felony Bennett. The victory music, trophies. No delay to announce the winner. The confetti cannon, as well as I guess the wine or
Yeah, the
champagne.
champagne sponsor.
Yes, yeah. Press conferences, very rare for fight announcements to leak unless I find out about them. Fighter interactions build hype. It improves the pre-fight VTRs. But lately they have been announcing things just through social media.
Yeah, that's a little
So
bit different than what they've been doing over their past, what is at this point, almost decade of existence.
yeah, and then number 20, the fight scoring system. As you say, you like the scoring system more than the unified rules, but it has been properly explained to the fan base, and I think also to the fighters as well. And I think they did change it up this year, from what I was told. But the classic scoring system is damage, aggressiveness, generalship, as opposed and scored as a whole as well. Like you say, a fighter cannot take a round off. You can still lose round one and 1-2, but still in round three and hopefully round 4 or 5 in the future, you can still win based on how you do damage wise, how close to a finish, controlling the fight, and aggressiveness. Now, I'll start with you, King Seal, since you made the list. Why did you choose these honorable mentions?
Yeah, so these are factors that are not really as great as the 25 that I was able to come up with. The weight miss no contest, that could be seen as a positive for the fans, but also a really big negative for the fighters as well, because that affects their fight purses. It delivers a lot of uncertainty, as we saw with Juan Archuleta at New Year's Eve. He had to weigh in during the event. There's just that greater expectation of making weight in Japan. As we've known, we've seen a bunch of weird rollings, whether it be deep or Shuto or Pancrase, or back in the day in Heroes or Dream, where some opponents will get a no contest right off the bat. No matter what the fighter does in that fight, they'll get a no contest on the record. So there is really that emphasis on making weight in Japan. And
Yes,
then like
and I
fighter face-offs and some of this, the ringside bell, those are just like little bells and whistles, as I guess you could say, for the events. It's definitely a different flair that is not seen in the US anymore. Hate to say like a UFC hater, but it seems like the fights run together in the UFC and PFL, where there isn't this like little bit of perspective on the fighters. So the fighter face off, so it makes every fight feel big, whether it's the first fight of the night or the main event. And I just like seeing some of these Japanese legends get paid. They were around building the sport 15, 20 years ago, and now they're still collecting paychecks, which I think is a great thing. Not only do they own gyms, but they're getting money to commentate and maybe even be referees or judges. So I think that's great as well.
And I think also just to kind of get off on your face off treatment when it comes to VTR, if you're counting VTRs and that, UFC, they still have like the fighters just sit in that like that brown room to
Yeah, there's
talk.
nothing really filmed on location. It's not, maybe sometimes you'll see some footage of them in their individual gyms, but there's not really anything like special there. Like the UFC announcements are different. We'll get to a bunch of those, but with the UFC face-offs before the fight, that doesn't really occur. Like inside of the cage, they don't really do those face-offs unless it's like a title fight or a main event or like a bad blood matchup.
Mm.
But when you're watching Rizin, you could be seeing the first prelim that's on YouTube for free, and they're both facing off. I think that's one of the best visuals in combat sports. When you see the two competitors face off eye to eye, that Vanderlei Silva rampage situation, I don't know, back in Pride. I think that was great. That just adds the intensity, adds the anticipation for the fans.
I should have actually said that this is your Rizin. What makes Rizin
Yes,
stand
Rizin.
out? I should have done that.
That's a kryptonite for international fighters for whatever reason, especially with the term Riz coming up a lot in the Vlac recently as a term. Yeah, Rizin. Yeah, that's a losing battle trying to pronounce it correctly. Somehow
Now,
Mayweather was able to pronounce it right.
oh
But
yeah, somebody must have read it to him.
about the pronunciation, there is a pancras. How the Japanese
Yeah.
saying, and pancreas as majority of the foreigners saying. It's
Yeah, I've always debated
the,
that pronunciation as well.
the same thing, but 180 degrees different.
Yeah. Promotional posters, we don't need to talk about that bullshit. We have
Oh yeah,
Ariel
well,
Helwani talking
yeah.
about it every single year. It's overblown at this point. That's why I only have it at 23. The posters are great. We don't need to go much more conversation about it.
I think the
So
post fight though. I like the
yeah,
post fight. I'll start. I'll go with you, Daniel. What do you think about does a post fight? Does that? What do you think about the post fights? How Ryzen does them traditionally?
It's in my opinion, it's much more smooth. The moment of finishing fight, the official decision, the atmosphere, how the music creates. It's not. It's here's the victory music, but we have to be clear that Ryzen has its own package of music for intervals, for the waiting for the waiting for the decision, and stuff like this. Of course, opening music, and I think this thing is awesome because in other fight promotions you have usually the DJ that airing that who is airing some remixes or even radio hits or maybe a classic rap music like in BYB Backyard Brawl Extreme. So yeah, I think I find it's the fact of the music of the brand is it's awesome. Of
yeah,
course.
yeah,
Okay, go on.
yeah. It's probably also a factor where Ryzen doesn't have the commercial sponsors, so they don't take the break of like 2 or 3 minutes in between the finish of the fight and reading the decision. So it may be seen as a negative from Ryzen where they don't have the ability to get the sponsors to have like that sort of break in between the finish and the
Well,
result being
well, here
official.
also, I'm just going to clarify as well. So about the commercial thing as well. So on the Japanese thing, on the Japanese what do you call it feed, they do commercial breaks. I think on Rizin Live, Unex, Abima, but we're not supposed to see that. We just get the looping tension getting knocked out by Mayweather. So they do have commercials, but not. Okay, I'll say this: they don't do it as much as like UFC or the NFL or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's at least that. It's at least kind of like a caveat like that. But
About the lack of breaks for waiting for the official decision. It's really nice from the from my point of view, because you don't have wait after the finish to say that this guy won by a finish or this guy got finished. Yeah, let him go to the to his changing room. The guy who got knocked out, not keep him on the goddamn ring.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But from the other hand, from the personal sponsors point of view, fighters has t-shirts with a bunch of sponsors, and the official decision is it's like a more of visibility for their sponsors, in terms of course, in terms of official decision, if the fight isn't finished by a finish. I would say.
I here's my theory why decisions don't take that long to be rendered. They are in Japan. Do you get it? They're in Japan.
I don't want to say it, but I think I know.
Okay, as long as we're on the same, as long as we're thinking, okay.
Especially with this complicated official scoring system, it does take some math to complete it.
Yeah. Just quickly, press conferences. I mean, listen, best conference of all time has to be the Hawaii press conference, which was just absolute insanity. That is still one of my favorite press conferences of all time. So, I mean, yeah, they haven't. I feel like the press conferences have been kind of less emphasized, though. They're doing this stuff on social media, announcing the fights. I hope that's not a permanent thing. I hope it's just like, oh, let's just try it this way, But I mean, yeah, listen, we're gonna be all tuning in 12 a.m. tonight to see what will be announced. So even though we can't understand them, even though they don't do the Shingo isn't standing next to the camera, doing the translations, they're still fun to watch.
Yeah, just seeing those fighters come out, you don't know who's facing one another. You think about that fantasy booking right there. Is that guy facing him? What's going on here? Are they going to hold up the little foreigner photo cards and all these typical Japanese things we've become accustomed to over the last 20 years?
Or Kanehara's in Thailand, and they're
just random shit, like them trying to figure out if the little pre-taped videos are going to work.
So let's get the scoring system. King Stilo. Scoring will always be a dirty fucking discussion thing in MMA. What was it about? Do you think that this is a perfect scoring system, or the closest to a perfect one?
This may come off bad, but I kind of like that the fighters don't know how it's going to be scored, because it kind of makes them go all out. So they really can't take off the rounds, as we've discussed before, but they're putting a lot of thought into their scoring system. They could have just adopted the unified rules. That's the safe method of MMA scoring, So they've definitely implemented this new scoring criteria, and they have the Japanese Athletic Commission over there, which we'll discuss later on. I just feel like the fight scoring adds a different element to the fights. We want to have damage be the number one part in deciding the winner. I think everybody would agree to that factor being the most important.
Yeah, absolutely. Or finishing, if you want to count damage as finish, which I don't know. Yeah. And it brings into so many other questions, like, would Armin versus Do Bronx, under Rise of Rules,
that's
probably Do Bronx wins.
Do Bronx win that fight. He had the closer submission attempts. He especially had that submission at the end of the third round. I think it was a Darce choke, which is very close to being finished. I felt like if that fight kept on going on, very good chance that Dubronx won that fight. But
Yeah.
then that ends up being a split decision, 29-28, or however it was determined.
Actually, if you don't mind me asking before I go to you, Daniel, are there? I feel like there's a lot less split decisions in Rizin,
Yeah,
unless.
I don't really have the numbers on that, but it may be the case.
Daniel, thoughts on the scoring system?
Uh,
You watch everything, so you're one of the best people to tell us like if you think the scoring system is one of the best things about Rizin.
For MMA, this is a much better system because we have to keep in mind that the 10-point must system is implemented from the striking sports, from boxing, from the kickboxing, and stuff like this. And this is the best form of scoring for striking sports. For MMA, which is too much expanded in comparison to kickboxing or boxing, I don't think that this system is proper because I would say, as you said before, Andrew, you can win 2 rounds 10-9, and then you can take a round off. So you can just wait to the end of the fight, and you are getting the decision because you know very well that you can do this in third round. You can do nothing or just scoring by low kicks.
Yeah, it's also impossible to get a 10-8 if you're basing it off of submission. So the knockdowns are way more valued. You're not going to see a 10-8 due to a near submission. You may see a 10-8 from, Frankie Edgar versus Gray Maynard situation where, somebody's getting rocked and like dancing all over the cage. So
here's a great race example: the Yang versus Kuramoto fight. Had he not gotten the yellow card, minus the points and all that stuff, Yang I think clearly wins that. Maybe it still may have gone to a split decision, but I think he still gets the win in that. Had he not based on the guillotines that he was going for and being closer to finishing and damage as well, because Kuramoto's face was all fucked up after that fight. So yeah, that's a great example of the proper way. Well, minus the yellow card.
By no means it's perfect. By no means. It'd be great. It'd be great if these fighters were better educated and if it was more common of a rule set outside of Rizin. But that's just what we have to deal with.
So what I've been told by certain Gaijin fighters is that they basically just get a bullet point breakdown of how they scored. Nothing like the JMOC thing is like tons of pages, and Shingo is not going to translate all that. He's just going to give you the basic shit. So. And as you can see, sometimes fighters know how to gain that system, and others don't, and they're like, why didn't I win and all that stuff. So it's they definitely should make it more transparent, I guess.
Yeah,
I would say that they should get more transparency, but at least. Here we have some more transparency, but you have to remember that Rizin isn't the only MMA org that uses this system, because one championship also scoring.
One will change their fucking thing, and there'll be a rule, one fight, and then the rule will be gone to the next fight. So they're not.
That's what I'm talking about.
Actually, Daniel, if you don't mind me asking, does KSW do the unified, or do they?
Yes, full unified. But this year in February they had a special event called KSW Epic, which consisted a lot of fights in a different under the different rule sets, and one of the fights was under the Pride rules without elbows, and the other fight was no holds barred, which was basically Rizin rules.
Gotcha. So let's continue on. Slideshows in memory of the LED ring ropes. # ring ropes can't cut foreheads, which is true. I would also like to add RIP electrical barrier ring things that they used to come up. I don't know what are those called? The rings, the electrical rings. Remember that when they used to
elevate from
course. Those
very
were
Japanese.
Yes.
Though
Ian McCall doesn't like this.
I do like the the screen opening. That is cool.
Yeah.
That is cool when they do it. Okay, so here are the next 5. 19 stomps. I don't think we need to really talk about that. That's kind of number 18, relaxed drug testing, which may not be as relaxed as we thought. Well, as you say, find the fighter, overturn the result, give a 6-month-long suspension. Say if you do it again, you'll get fired. So they're serious about it when they do it.
Kimura wanted to be tested himself, so this is the
whole thing.
You
can volunteer yourself to you can volunteer to get yourself tested and still fail and still get a
Hey guys, let's test me. I'm a clean. Oh, you are not a clean.
No, you're not.
You're an idiot.
The sample burned the tester's hand. Opening ceremony. Rizin, whatever, is more low key with production quality than Pride, FC, and Dream, but the ceremony still builds hype and plays a factor in fans showing up earlier. This would be higher on the list if they continued in the theatrics of their first 3 New Year's Eve events. 16 freak show fights and 15 Japanese crowd. The famous Place Japan, yay. Japanese fans show up early on poor sports when domestic fighters lose, seem more respectful than English fans. Okay, so I don't think we need to talk about stomps. They
don't happen enough.
Is LED ropes still a thing? I think
that's just we're just thinking about it. The times that the ring ropes used to actually work.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if they I think they got rid of them like 2019-ish.
Something like this, yes.
Yeah. Relaxed drug testing. So I don't know if so they do drug test. It is but I don't know if what extent of how it is. I know Tofik, the people in the light heavyweight Grand Prix all drug tested. Kimura, obviously. So I don't know if it's exactly the contract says I could take steroids type of relaxed drug testing, or if it's just, or if it's, I don't know. I don't know. I definitely have to ask more fighters about if they do standardized drug testing or some sort of whatever. Thoughts, Casey?
This PowerPoint was made before the Kimura saga of failed drug tests. I think it was made after the first failed drug test, so I guess there was 2 or 3 after that, or there's a second and a third positive test. But anyways, I just feel like the USADA connection with the UFC, all it did was take away fights that we wanted to see.
Well, it's not even that. It's also just they clearly were giving favoritism towards
whether it be John.
We're going to go to a different state. Yeah, John Jones. Possibly Brock Lesnar.
Yes, I don't know how Mark Hunt lost that court case.
Connor.
Yeah.
Probably.
Has he taken a drug test yet? Maybe.
Meanwhile, they're testing Jiri apparently every fucking day, every other hour, supposedly. So but he's negative.
As far as we know.
Now, opening ceremonies. Yeah, unfortunately, when they do them, they're great. But with Takada retired, I don't even know if he's even in a consulting position anymore. I agree with you. Those first 3 were fucking great, but they definitely what was it? The one where they
the laser pointers,
not the laser, but the curtain, where the curtain
they love the curtain for whatever reason.
Yeah, I'll say this: even the most low key opening ceremony, whatever thing, is still better than certainly a fucking Bellator, PFL. UFC opening, which is basically nothing. It's just it's just they show the commentators and
the empty arena.
The arena where nobody's in there.
Just think about if you're a fighter in one of those first few fights, you're feeling completely different if you're facing somebody on the main card. There's could be a main card fight. You have 10,000 people that you're fighting in front of, but then when you're on that really low undercard, maybe 1 or 2,000.
Mm-hmm. Also, just the fact that they come out to introduce all the fighters.
Yeah, I feel like it's cool. A major respect thing. I think that's why they do it. It gets the fighters more hyped. I think there's.
But also, it makes everybody feel important. It kind of makes every fight. There's a caveat though. They don't do that for those opening prelim fights.
Yeah, that is kind of the deal
That's the
there.
one thing I don't like, because it felt whenever they would do the opening, like even the regional fucker Kengo kickboxer would come out, and it still feels like, oh, you're getting introduction. It feels important. So I will remember my favorite walkout was when Tanner Lorenko looked like he walked out in the wrong place. He kind of was looking. Remember when he had the fight in I think it was Okinawa? He kind of like was looking around like he looked so confused.
Yeah.
Daniel, any comment about the opening ceremonies?
As you said before, even it's a, let's say, a low-key show like a landmark series. It still brings the hype. Even it's a regional cage show of Rizin. It's still something special, because all the fighters are present from the beginning of the event. Not like in USA the main fighters are going to the single to the arena, and then they have their own camera because they are in the arena just now. It's not a thing in Japan, and it's so different, and it's so cool in my opinion.
Oh,
Yeah,
just
there
want to
is
give a shout. Oh,
there
sorry,
where
go
all
ahead.
the fighters have to show up super early for the introduction, so they're there maybe like 6 or 7 hours before the fight starts. That's a negative.
If your name is Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, unless
Yeah.
you can show up everyone who wants.
Just want to give a shout out to everybody who's in the chat. Jay Krish, City Life Project, Josh, and Rise Will Die. Thank you for joining us. Now, 16, Big Show. Sorry?
I would like to say that I'm working with some at some events that it have some opening ceremonies like the main shows of KOK, and this is basically the same scenario. The people, there are some 1 or 2 opening fights, and then there's an opening ceremonies like in Japan, so it's really nice and special.
Gotcha. Now, 16, Freak Show fights.
Not
I
a thing
feel like
anymore, I think.
Sorry?
Not a thing
I just wanted
anymore.
to. Yeah, they don't. So I don't know. Do you count
That's such a
Cody?
Polish thing to say.
Do we count Taka Kenshin versus the lawyer as a freak show
fight? this kind of. I think it's nowhere near the Bob Sapp Osuna Arashi fight. Definitely.
No, it's not. It's definitely not the same that it used to be. Like, I would say at least. I mean, because like, remember they did Bob Sapp versus Aki Bono and that weird shoot boxing thing. They used to have. They had Wataru Sakata, like broken down Wataru Sakata in an MMA match. They had these weird kind of like Fire Pro Wrestling randomized matches. And I feel like post-pandemic, they did it only occasionally, but like for special things. I don't know, Casey, any thoughts on the I think freak show fights, because listen, we don't get Gabby Garcia anymore. We don't get alpha female. We're not getting those types of, we're not getting 50-year-old kickboxers anymore. So
we don't
Matsumo Lopez, whatever his name
anymore.
is. Yeah, it definitely feels a lot less. So, did you write? When did you put freak show fights in? Was that earlier this year?
Yeah, it was earlier this year. I feel like that's something that they should just bring out at, say, Thomas Super Arena, these bigger events, unless they have some local freak that they want to bring out for some of these smaller shows. But the comment on JMA always during the Pride era was, these Japanese fans, they're not real MMA fans. They're just there for the weird fight. They're not really there for the actual competition. But I think that's been greatly proven false. In the U.S., we're just seeing freak show fights left and right. We're about to see Mike Tyson versus a Paul Brother on Netflix. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're seeing a bunch of goofy ass shit around the world. It's just not a Japan thing.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like Rizin is a little more sober up on the freak show fights compared to some of these.
They kind of started. They kind of started the whole thing. I mean, if you want to count the Tension versus Mayweather thing, if you want to count that as a freak show fight, and it would be great if they did all this Gabby Garcia shit now, because this stuff would be going like viral on social media.
The short clips, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I regret very much that they have suspended the female heavyweights. It would be true viral.
The one division that we wish they would all bring back. I mean, but now KSW is the one who's taking over the mantle with the Iron Lung or whatever the guy came in on the gurney or something or whatever that
Oh
was.
yeah. It's common. It's a common thing. It can be present at the KSW event.
Now, 15 Japanese crowds. I think we can agree that Japanese crowds are some of the best. But they can be brutal. Like, remember when Kana took on Ayaka and they were just booing her because she was like dating tension or something? There was some like weird thing. And then Reina when she missed weight, and then all the comments about her being fat. So Japanese fans can be brutal in their own way. But the crowd itself, King Silo, do you find the Japanese crowd to just be better than the just bleed bloodthirsty stand 'em up American crowd?
Some crowds are just downright dangerous. You look at the Brazil crowd. You don't even want to go down there if you're a foreign fighter. They can't even book fights without a Brazilian in them. Every single fight that the UFC's ever put down in Brazil has had a Brazilian fighter in it because the Brazilian fans won't be interested otherwise. I think Japanese fans are not as likely to throw drinks or start big fights in the crowd like we saw with Badr it's just a goofy ass shit that we see with Moroccan fans, Brazilian fans, even Mexican fans with that one event that had the main event and in a eye poke no contest.
Yeah.
I just don't think you'll see that kind of activity out of the Japanese. And plus, when you're looking at the tweets, you can use the little Twitter translate, and it's not as goofy as the absolute bizarre non-MMA topics that are under some of these U.S. fighters' tweets. It's just, I mean, the Japanese fans, I don't want to seem like I'm coming out in full support of them. They're freaks as well. But the U.S. fans, they're just talking about any sort of thing. It's just goofy. I think the discourse is getting worse.
About the brutality of... Can I?
No, go ahead.
About the brutality of Japanese fans, I remember how they've been receiving the walkouts of Yoshihiro Akiyama. There's always boo.
Yeah, that's one of the few fighters that actually get that booing, and he deserved it. How can you cheat against Sakuraba?
Of course.
Yeah. Well, but so Daniel, I've been to Rizin, but you've been to Rizin as well. What is your interpretation of the Japanese crowd when you were in the arena?
It's something really special when you are sitting inside the 30K packed arena and you can hear the people from the corners of the fighters, and it's really. I can't even describe this feeling. Of course, I was at the last KSW event 2 weeks ago, and of course there are some moments that there is silence in the arena, but it's not very often like in Japan.
Gotcha. We're gonna continue on with the next 5. Number 14, New Year's Eve tradition, which, as you know, that's basically New Year's Eve in Japan is something else. The promotional business always forces MMA to sell the next event as the grandest one ever. Besides New Year's Eve on the MMA counter, there really isn't a time of year that stands out with as much historical background as a part of the sport for the last 20 years, so it must continue. Is the NFL on Thanksgiving, NBA on Christmas, and MLB on July 4th. That big fight field. Number 13, Daisuke Sato VTRs and Confessions series. That kind goes by. It doesn't need to explain. Slideshow in memory of unique belt designs. Abso-fucking-lutely. I missed the dragon belt. I missed the fucking... Oh my god! I was there when I saw what they had the belt on display at the Saitama Arena for the show. And I'm like, oh my god, it's like the best belt ever. 12, kickboxing. This trade would be higher if the matchmaking wasn't always as one-sided. When it comes to co-promotion, it seems that kickboxing orgs have more say in matchmaking than the partner JMMA orgs. Number 11, entrances and Lenny Harts. And number 10, Grand Prix of multiple fights in one night, which may not be as common anymore. But let's start with New Year's Eve tradition. I think we can all just agree, we always look forward to the New Year's Eve. Sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
Okay. Until we will start talk about the New Year's Eve tradition, I would like to say that Rizin is trying, or I think they did it, revive the other historical moment, historical tradition of Japanese combat sports, the Midsummer Fight Festival, because the first Dynamite, aka Shockwave, wasn't a New Year's Eve. It was a Midsummer Fight Festival, and the Super Rising is I think this is the reference to the first Dynamite from 2002.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I agree.
VTRs and confessions. Listen, I don't know why they haven't subtitled the confessions, the Little Slaves confessions. It's been 10 days, but when they do subtitle them, I usually get on that shit like immediately. And the VTRs, Casey, they don't subtitle the VTRs for whatever reason, but K1 can for whatever reason. But nonetheless, do you still enjoy the VTRs even though you may not know what they're saying?
Yeah. I mean, you got some random ass music that they'll include there. It's whatever's on his Spotify playlist, really. It seems like they don't have any sorts of rights issues when it comes to music. It's a totally different environment over there with the videos. You'll never see one of the US promotions use a song that you'll know. They'll usually use royalty-free music for their intros. Even if we don't have the subtitles, we still get the story that he's trying to really come and display. So this is dating all the way back to the Pride era.
Yeah.
And I would like to say that Daisuke Sato sometimes is going really wild in these fight interviews, like with Horia.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. The VTRs don't fucking hold back. Like if you fucked up, like when that Bay Noah Johnny Case comes up, they're gonna show like Bay Noah's gonna get roasted.
Yeah, those tweets, they're already in there. He's already got that VTR done.
Oh,
he just typed in Bay Noah's name into the search and then pulled like 10 tweets and they're just gonna pop up on the screen like that. Worst fight ever. Yes. Bay Noah should never be invited back. Bay Noah should die. I don't know. So it's definitely a situation where he adds to the fight. I don't know why it took him so long to appear on camera and be like the official person that's giving the interviews. Some of his confessions material is hilarious. That he's just like boiling the older fighters like Tokoro. It's just great.
I think it's because also like there was the one with Majima. He called like Majima fat or something. Remember like in the he called Majima fat or something. It was something like I couldn't believe that like he actually like asked that or something.
Yeah,
or, like made that comment.
I think it's all good fun though.
Oh yeah, but that's like you're not gonna like the interviewer's not gonna ask Valentina Shevchenko, aren't you gonna get fat eating that borscht or whatever?
Yeah.
In wherever the hell she's from. Slideshow memory. Yeah. Unique Belt Designs. RIP Unique Belt Designs. I mean, yeah. The dragon, the
shattered glass light heavyweight belt.
I do like though that the atomweight title is like very small. I think they've done the thing where like depending on the weight, the belt gets bigger or smaller. So at least that's kind of fun. I think
that's necessary, yeah. And if you look at the belts very closely, there's a misspelling on there. I never wanted to bring it up, but there's a misspelling on each one of the titles.
It was like the Hulk. What was it? The Super Hulk? It was like HLUK. Listen, I love that. It's just something so funny about that.
But this Super Hulk belt was a fan made for Minowa.
Yeah, that was a fan made. Yeah.
That's even better. It was fan made.
It gets into the VTRs. It gets on to the actual program itself. He becomes part of the lore. Like the fans, and they had that Super Rizin fan a couple years ago that was a complete scamster that faked that he had cancer. But beyond that, I feel like when they bring in the fans, they add to the product as well. They're not afraid of incorporating some art as well. Like some of the VTRs have even had fan art at the very beginning of the shows.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What was it? The one guy who did all the drawings. The guy's name.
The Japanese draws guy. Yeah, I forget what his first name is, but yeah, I think his material's great. And then it becomes fight posters as well, official fight posters. So that's great as well.
So kickboxing. Okay, I'm so okay. I'm going to say this right now. I'm tired of the regional Nagoya who's cup guys. I'm tired of it. Listen, if you want to do the big kickboxing fights like Anpo versus Buakaw or Kimura versus, I'm like all for that. But I'm just like, I know why they'll put like Kengo or whoever on their kickboxing
Sell
thing,
some
but it's just
tickets.
like it sells. Doesn't really doesn't is there that much of a does that do they move that many tickets though to take up a
Yeah, I don't
space?
know. I don't know if they're averaging like 30 to 50 tickets sold, but there has to be a reason why they're having these lower end kickboxers on these cards. I guess one, they create content. It's like kind of a content mill. They can put these Facebook or not Facebook, but YouTube fights up, and they get like
Yeah, well,
10,000 or 20,000 people, and it leads into the pay-per-view. So those
okay.
fighters are cheap, and I guess it adds to the hype before the fight
So it's
starts,
like
the
I
pay-per-view.
would be fine with it if it wasn't like 5 fucking regional guys in the first like
I
5
think they're
fights.
beginning to slow down on that, unless it's in
I don't
Osaka.
know. They didn't slow down. Well, because now they're doing like the deep rules MMA fights now. So now they're all becoming like I'm starting to get confused now. Like, was that a kickboxing fight or was that a deep rules MMA fight?
Yeah, those are
Um,
goofy.
Daniel, I don't know. What are your thoughts on the kickboxing thing?
They need some local heroes because it take place actually only at a local shows, Fukuoka, Kansai shows, Sapporo, Nagoya, and it's all about kickboxers who are the opening fighters of these cards. I think that we've been talking about it one or two podcasts ago that this kind of stuff doesn't exist at not Kansai but Kanto cards. It's not a thing in Tokyo, Saitama, and stuff like this, and Yokohama. Only the regional ones.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, I think that Rizin's kickboxing division died when Tension left. That's my opinion.
But there was actually a fight of Anp and Buakav. So
Oh yeah,
we
that
can
was great. Yeah, but then the next show, oh, it's Landmark in wherever. Oh, we got regional 1 and 2 guy versus countryside rural 2-1 guy. So I don't
Plus,
know. I
kickboxing in a
like
cage
the
is
big matches. Sorry, go ahead.
kickboxing in a cage shouldn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. Kickboxing in a cage should not happen.
That's true.
Entrances of Lenny Hart. Lenny Hart needs no exception. Entrances though they've gotten a lot less like this kind of. But when they I'm trying to think of who's had like a big entrance recently.
The bare knuckle
Um.
fight.
Oh
Yoshinobu.
yeah. Oh yeah. Wait, Justin Hernandez had a big entrance.
No, not him.
Oh, okay. I know.
But I would like to say that it's something special. I think that Rice also has this scam. The two system of two announcers, one inside the ring, one on the ring side. Like Rizin is doing, like Dream and Pride was doing it through the years. And it's not a common thing in the Western promotions. You have
Non-existent.
you have always a guy inside the cage or the ring who is doing all the stuff.
Yeah.
In Rise, you have their Japanese on the ring announcer and a ringside announcer who is Vivime Yamaguchi.
Yeah. Actually, I want to say something. I disagree with entrances, Casey. Reason being is because I don't want to hear Catfish rap again, ever,
No, I love
ever,
that.
ever again. No, I don't.
That's a bad take. Bad take.
No,
The
no.
Funny.
the most epic battle of the walkouts was before the Shibata and Yuta Kubo fight.
Yep.
It was most fucking epic.
Yep.
Okay.
Sarah. She's
Yeah,
number
okay,
one on
yeah.
this list, actually.
Yeah. Number 10, Grand Prix, multiple fights in one night. I don't know if the I don't know if the Grand Prix is essentially dead, but the one night fight I think is dead ever since Kai lost the Grand Prix that he was supposed to win. I mean, I'll tell you the truth, and Jay Wolf is gonna read me for this. Read me for this. Listen, I'm indifferent to Grand Prix that are one nights. Like if you want to do a tournament, that's great, but I don't know. Like I don't think that's Risen's focusing on that anymore for whatever reason.
I think it should
I don't
just
know,
be
Case.
2 fights in one night. I don't want any more than 2 fights. I feel like if you do the final 4 in one night, that's good.
Mhm. Daniel.
Why they are not doing it anymore? Yes.
Well, I mean, do you think that Grand Prix are a good thing that about Ryzen? I'm indifferent to Grand Prix because I wind up always being disappointed in some way a lot of times.
I think it always been a great idea to have the fluent Grand Prix, because when Strikeforce tried to doing it, when Bellator 2 the version 2.0 tried to doing it, they have expanded it into a year or even more, 1.5 year, and 2 quarterfinals at this event, 2 quarterfinals at this event, and sometimes the single fights from the tournament took place at the different event, and it doesn't had and didn't have a feel, the special feeling of the Grand Prix like the Japanese styled Grand Prix has.
We must
I
remember
can
that
also,
Bellator is cursed.
yeah. I'll just say this. I don't hate Grand Prix. I was kind of joking. Listen, I love the open weight Grand Prix that they had. Just because it was a
Every
crazy
single
thing.
winner has been a banger on that list. Maybe
Oh, yeah.
besides King Mo.
What about the Seiki Izawa one? That was
No, Seika Izawa, that helped sort of like make her more solid of a fighter. I felt like that they tried to boost her with that
I
tournament.
also so here's the thing. I also think that fighters are not a fan of Grand Prix. I think that's
Oh yeah,
also
of course.
why.
It's definitely fan sided.
Yeah. The other thing is that they can't control who wins, and
Well, that
di-
makes it kind of fun.
that is. But then,
awesome.
then we don't. But then, because Kai didn't win the tournament he was supposed to win, that's why we're not getting them anymore. Because it's like, fuck, we can't have that. We can't let that.
Yeah, the
happen.
Asakaras kind of have that negative influence, whether it be them wanting a ring or them getting rid of the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of have their drawbacks.
What was I gonna say? We all know though the best Grand Prix though is the PFL regular season.
Oh, of course, of course. Don Davis. Yep.
Okay, number 9, better fighter rights. That could be that's been in the news quite lately.
Yeah.
No athlete uniforms, allowed sponsorship contracts are only Japan exclusive. Number 8, soccer kicks. That doesn't need to have much explanation. This slideshow is in memory of 10-minute first round. R.I.P. Jury rounds, unfortunately. 7, up kicks at any time. 6, ring. You hear that, Jay Wolf? Ring. As you see,
Jay Wolf's not even in here. He's fucking afraid. He knew the ring was going to be in the top 10. He just didn't want to show up.
No cage stalling, easier to corner opponent. Few promotions use it, so it looks unique. Restarts, increase offensive grappling, best for kickboxing, and better viewing. That's the main thing. You can see it anywhere, both in the arena and at home. And number 5, 90% of fights are lightweight and under. Higher pace, which means the higher pace fights, more countries involved, easier to find untapped talent, and women's super atom weights is unique to Rizin. So let's go with better fighter rights. Okay. I don't know. Fighter rights are in the news apparently lately. Here's what I can tell you about how contracts in Rizin work. And it's different for every fighter. Some fighters are exclusive to Rizin in that it's like Horiguchi. People like Horiguchi, Azakura brothers only fight for Rizin. That doesn't mean that they can't fight for other promotions or get involved with other adventures. But they are Rizin fighters, like representing. You have fighters that have like one fight contracts, like Cindy Dandois did. Like she got offered one fight and she never got called back. And then other fighters, and then I wouldn't say that. Other fighters like Jay Kuhn. Jay Kuhn, when he first got the offer from Rizin, they said we want whatever it is, 2 or 3 fights for you this year. And
those fights are still going to be legit once he comes out of jail.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. So Yes, different. It's not the contracts are not uniform like UFC or Bellator, PFL, whatever, and they're not like one. Okay, you're not a fucking prisoner. They also, as we saw of Cape, Crone, Jiri, they wanted to be let out of their contracts, or their contracts got whatever.
No
Weili
championship clause.
Zhang, yeah, they let Jiri and
Limited
Cape go even though they're champions. Weili Zhang lied about allegedly lied about a injury she had, and then
I didn't say
for
it.
some reason, yeah, apparently the contract doesn't roll over to like another fight, which I would think most contracts would, but it didn't, and she wound up going to UFC. So, KC, thoughts on better fighter rights that Rizin provides?
Yeah, so sometimes it's just depressing looking at the news cycle of MMA. Whether it's fighters being taken advantage of, them losing a lawsuit, Mark Hunt's losing millions of dollars just trying to establish that the UFC gave favorable rules to Brock Lesnar. There's just so many things that are going on that the promoter wins when it comes to fighters' rights. We see athlete uniforms in PFL, in the UFC. That's just not the case over in Japan. Rizin would probably want fighter uniforms, but they don't have the balls to do it, I don't think.
I don't think they would. I don't think they would.
I don't know. I just don't think they have that emphasis on it. I think there's many things that they want to do. They want more commercials during broadcasts. They want to have these fighters have little as control as possible. These are just natural things that the promoters want. I don't think they're acting out of their own good graces.
There's a thing. Rizin also and Bara realize where they are in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that they don't have a lot of power, but listen, you don't have a lot of power, compared to the UFC, or maybe even one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's there's a lot more leeway with like you said, advertisements, no uniforms, and you can fight at other places. You're not, you could be on Rizin 1 week, and then the next month you're in fucking Deep or Chuto or One or whatever,
And
you're still welcome back.
This is very important thing to say about the releasing from the contracts, because when pandemics happened, they have released all the foreign fighters from the contracts because they couldn't bring them to the Japan, basically, and it was a really smart from the side of the promotion.
They took a negative and put into a positive, kind of.
So Shingo, once I talked to Shingo, he said that one of the things he wanted to do was erase the stigma that Japan of Japanese MMA from like its past things, and this might be one of those things. So, and especially because he worked in the US for
King of the Cage.
King of the Cage. So he knows how that level of promotion works. He's probably dealt with UFC, all that stuff. He sees the mistakes. He tells Bara, what we should do, what we should not do. So, it's a credit to them that they actually are this flexible. Listen, you're not a prisoner. You're not in a lifetime contract like One or whatever, or having to go Ariel Helwani to get
your freedom.
Yes, soccer kicks. I mean,
yeah, it goes without saying we don't have to talk about it. We've been watching the sport for a long time.
10-minute first rounds.
Yeah.
RIP. Listen, I think though, would you agree that should be like the title fights?
Oh yes, if it's just a 15-minute fight and that first round is 10 minutes, that works for me.
Yeah.
I would be up. Of course, I would be up. I remember that Shingo explained that it would be they would have changed the scoring system. I don't know how it works, but he explained it in this kind of things, and I'm not sure about the connection between the length of rounds and the scoring system, to be honest. But if they would bring up the 10-minute rounds for the title fights, it would be awesome, of course.
Up kicks at any time, even though, listen, the best up kick win of all time was Yushin Okami over Anderson Silva. But
yes, that happened in Hawaii. And
Yes.
I'm not even sure if the athletic commission would have cared. I'm not even sure if Hawaii had an athletic commission at that point, or if they do now. But that was just
I don't
something
even
that
know.
King of the, what was it? The Rock? What was
King,
it?
King of the Rock of the Rumble, something like
Yeah,
that.
Brawl
Rumble
for
on
All
the
or
Rock.
whatever.
Brawl
Brawl.
of the Rumble, Brawl of the Rock. Something with Rock,
Yes,
Brawl,
very,
Rumble, whatever.
very Hawaiian.
6 ring. Okay, Casey, tell us
Oh,
why the ring.
we could have done 55 minutes just on the ring. We don't really need to discuss this, but there's this misconception with the ring where it's just a negative for Japanese promotions. The only Japanese promotion that's really using the ring as much as they do now, like, is Rizin. You'll see some of the smaller deep shows use the ring just because the
Shooter
venues
shows,
don't fit the
regional
cage.
shooter shows.
Yeah.
Also,
Um,
are doing the shows on the ring, so it's not extinct
so
on the regional
I
level.
want to say this as well. It's just aesthetically cooler. Like, come on, a ring versus a fucking fence. That's what it is. It's a
Yeah.
fence. I don't like a ring is just like I don't know. It's classy. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just cooler. So,
Yeah, and so many MMA fans just become accustomed to the cage stall. They don't even recognize it anymore.
yeah, I
I don't.
know. I
I think
know.
the cage is one of the most boring aspects. Like, some of the most boring fight sequences happen up against that wall.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yes, no. Like, yo, listen. Want to watch a Holly Holm fight? 90% of it is against the cage, with 10% of ish. And number 5, 90% of fights are lightweight and under. We wouldn't have said that though, 2016 or 2017 maybe. But post pandemic, as the years went on, it became more lightweight focused. So you like that, Casey? You like that? There's a lot more
Yeah.
flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight stuff.
One of the biggest compliments of the WEC after the UFC bought it out in 2006 was the emphasis of those lower weight classes. I think the action's just better. I think the talent level is better. Look at some of these fighters. Some of the most memorable fighters in Rizin history are those lower weight class guys. And it's also very helpful for some of the Asian fighters as well. You'll see most of that Asian talent be in those 125, 135-pound divisions.
Daniel, I know that you were in the land of the freak show fights, but
Yeah.
I am guessing you also enjoy your lighter fights.
Of course, as Casey said, better pace, better talent pool, faster fights. But I'm still waiting for established welterweight division. But more, I'm waiting for male strawweight.
Oh yeah, maybe.
That's a Pancrase special.
I'll just say this: Reaper Jones. I don't know if you've ever been to any MMA show in a cage or a ring. Trust me, you want to go to a show of a ring more than a show of a cage, because unless you're all the way up there, you can't see shit. I've sat everywhere for cage shows, and yeah, you can only see if you're like elevated so you can look down. But a ring you can see everywhere. Let's get to the last of this. Number 4, Japanese MMA Committee, JMOC, perhaps the biggest upgrade since the Pride FC and Dream Days. Multiple referees work each match. You can see them around the ring when you watch the shows. Aggressive against stalling. Funny that Joe Rogan came out today and said that fights should not be stand up. So that might be an interesting.
That's a goofy take.
Overturns incorrect calls, which is like on the fly as well. Publishes bout scoring streams, officiating training. Number 3, under 10 years, 10 events, 10 years, under 10 events per year. The schedule lets the events breathe to allow for build up. If there are events every month, the talent pool will be stretched thin. There's maybe the case with the current schedule of 8-ish events. Lower show frequency means if it's more manageable for overseas geeks to stay up to watch live. Co-promotion, non-exclusive contracts. And number 1, grounded knees. So let's start with number 4. JMOC. There's a great article. I think it was with Sherdog, where they interviewed the JMOC officials.
I will say only this: the coolest athletic committee in the world.
Very transparent.
They're absurdly transparent for a Japanese organization.
Yes. That's why it stands out.
Yeah, listen, like the Shibatar fight, they changed that on the fly.
Yeah, within 20 minutes or so.
the Kinoshita fight, I think they also did that as well.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with it or not, but listen, you know, there's none of this bullshit where like you have to like go through like a committee kind
Yeah.
of thing.
You have to
Like
wait for your day in court, as they could say.
yeah,
And nothing's ever getting overturned with U.S. commissions anyway.
I can't
We-
remember the last time anything was ever overturned.
Yeah, like a
What is
result, that just doesn't happen.
what
Oh,
is
Daniel,
really
were you
cool?
gonna say something?
What is really cool? They don't, you know, they are not the governing body in terms of the rule sets, like in the USA, like
Yeah.
in France, like in UK. They are flexible and they can work with any promotion that appears in Japan.
So I want to talk about something else. Aggressive against stalling. We had Joe Rogan come out today or yesterday that saying that they should never stand up a fight. That you have to work your way up. Really stupid because it's just stupid. I don't know how else I don't want to see two guys or girls laying on each other and whatever. It's a sport and it's entertainment. Literally sports entertainment.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's corrections with stalling in every other sport. So why is MMA not one of the sports that should have this sort of rule set in place?
do you want a repeat of Severn versus Shamrock from UFC? What was it, 2 or 3? Where they're just in their guards for 40 fucking minutes or whatever it was. No, I don't want that ever again. I don't want that.
It may come off as being anti-grappling, but I don't think that's the case. People say the same thing about the ring, where, oh, well, you can't cage walk, or there's all these resets. People just will escape through the ropes. And those all come off as maybe anti-grappling takes, but I feel
That's
like,
not no. Grappling is we know what grappling is. Chrome Gracie grapples. Satoshi grapples. Just laying on your opponent for 2 or 3 rounds, like Bol Purev or Baruto was doing. That's not grappling. I don't know. That's laying on your opponent. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, King Stilo. Go ahead.
no, I feel like that covers both the ring and then the Japanese MMA board that's been in place maybe since 2018 or so.
Mhm.
One of the biggest negatives of the old Japanese era, whether it was true or false, it was probably true. Japanese fighters were kind of like favored in the decisions, but I don't think that's the
Yeah.
case anymore. We're
Oh
seeing
no,
bad
it's probably the
decisions
opposite.
for
It's probably
foreigners
the
now.
opposite at this point. Yeah, yeah. They give it yeah. None of this, oh, Takeda's, we want Takeda to get a win over a Crow Cop bullshit. So, oh, he didn't do shit, so we're gonna give it a draw. So, no. If anything, it benefits you to be a foreigner now, almost.
But to be honest, do you remember even from the Pride many robberies against the foreign fighters? To be honest, I don't remember many. In kickboxing, yes, there have been a lot of different weird
That's still the case.
decisions, including nowadays, but not in MMA.
But also, like some of those kickboxing fights the problem with kickboxing is that
Too short.
unless somebody is one sided, they'll just rule a draw by default, which is really dumb.
Yeah, that bonus round is kind of a crutch.
Yeah. And what was it? There was something else. Oh, fouls and damage. They're consistent. Yellow cards, warnings, red cards, grabbing the rope. How often do we listen? How often do we see people break the rules in UFC, Bellator, PFL, whatever, and nothing happens? It almost benefits you to break the rules in those organizations.
Yeah, so a big positive here is there's more than one referee working each fight. You'll see
Yes.
referees all around the ring or the cage. They're all watching the fight, and they all have the ability to dish out fouls or,
Even
throw
end
in
the
the baton
fight.
for stoppages.
They can also end the fight, which is also healthy
Yeah,
for
that
the
red
fighters.
baton, I think.
Yeah, they can also see the a submission in case
Yeah.
the referee can't.
This is something that you'll never hear on any other broadcast besides war.
Yes, exactly.
We are Rizin. We're familiar with the ins and outs of Rizin. So I feel like you'll never see that topic discussed anywhere else. There's multiple referees working each fight. It's safer. The rules are implemented better. That's it. That's a great positive.
Number 3, under 10 events per year. I don't know if that's going to happen now with the whole streaming thing. I don't know. I worry they're going to do like 2 events, like week, like back to back. So I would say yes, but I don't think that's going to stick around, King CeeLo.
Yeah, just as the promotion gets more successful, there'll be more events. That's kind of the negative, as we've seen with the UFC. When I first started watching the UFC, there was 20 to 30 events a year, but now
Mm.
there's 45 events a year. There's almost every single Saturday. There's a UFC
Yeah,
event. Nothing feels special anymore, blah, blah, blah. We've all heard this conversation for the last 10 years.
yeah,
There's fights every weekend. With Rizin, it's more of a special occurrence.
yeah. Even like a landmark in Nagoya still feels special.
Yeah, because of the role set, the ring, all these sorts of different things that differentiate it from all the other MMA promotions.
Daniel,
I would
thoughts
say that
on?
for as a Rising TV subscriber, I would say that one event
Horse
per
roll.
month would be a sweet spot. Even if they would do typical short old style landmark cards in the dead months during the dead months like January or even the one of this kind of event during the summertime, but in knowing the how it is, I think that 10 would be in under current conditions would be very good. Break after the New Year's Eve, so in January, and then break during the summertime or
November.
during the November before the New Year's Eve. But as we could see last year in November, there was a foreign event, so there's also some kind of solution in this situation.
Yeah. I'm just not a fan of like doing one show one week and then the next week one in Nagoya and
Oh,
then one in Tokyo. I don't like that. That's really, especially when you load up with 14 or 15 fights
Yeah.
of people I don't, for like 10 fights I don't give a shit about. So that's the
I hate
one
the
thing
Monday
because
cards as well, but that's holidays.
oh
That's holidays though.
yeah, yeah, we can't control that though. Oh,
Yeah.
that's going
but
to be an overseas geek problem.
Yeah.
But speaking about UFC, there's a very brutal comparison because UFC right now is, as Casey said, sometimes it's I don't know 6 consecutive Saturdays with an event, and people are even complaining when there's a break. Why I can't understand it, and I will never understand it. But from the other hand, from some promotions like Bellator, from the very beginning was like the factory of the events.
Mm,
Because from even the Bellator 1.0 version had its seasons, which consisted, I don't know, many events during the year. So it is what it is. It's that's how the market looking
mm.
Yeah,
right
Mr.
now.
Jones in the comment section brought up a good point. It would be nice to see some of these full events, with all the fixings like the VTRs and the entrances, but I don't think it's possible with all the rights that would be required. The
Yeah.
UFC can't even do that with the entrances and have the original music.
I
That's
So,
think
I
this
mean,
is
there's
the
that's
multiple
problem. Yeah.
Chinese
that's
websites you go on to see the full events. I
yes.
didn't direct you there,
Well,
of course.
we all know the Holy Grail, and that's the Bellator post one. That's what we all want. You got one fight.
Yeah,
You just need the other 20 or whatever. So number two, co-promotion, non-exclusive contracts, which we kind of talked about
yeah,
before with how they work
fighter
contracts.
rights.
Number one, grounded knees. Why that, Mr. CeeLo?
Oh, it's so dynamic. You'll see a lot of times in the UFC, there's this sort of cat and mouse game that's going on with the fighter that's on the ground and then the fighter that's standing up. It adds to a bunch of unnatural moments in a fight where the fighters are just trying to play by the rules. Musasi's in the news today for certain reasons. He got his freedom today from the PFL, but I feel like his fight against Chris Weidman is a great example of this. Uh, During that fight, Chris Weidman was constantly playing with the 3 points of contact on the ground, trying to avoid the illegal knee.
Mm.
But
Well,
in Japanese promotions, that knee's legal all the time.
That's kind of the fault of the unified rules, because New York City, what was it, like one hand can be down or two hands
Yeah,
can be
it's so
down,
confusing.
others
Every
it can
state's
be,
different. It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
unified rules anymore.
yeah. It's not it's de-unified or whatever the
Yeah.
fuck it is.
Yeah, some
Um,
some states had
but
this rule. Some other states had the different rule set about the grounded position. So right now is fucked up totally.
But here's the thing. Here's what also, and I really want to see. I wish we had seen it with the Godzi Rabanov Takeda fight. I want to see like how these Dagestani guys, these 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 wrestler types, have to deal with that, because I feel like a lot of these Dagestani type wrestlers train for UFC type rules, because a lot of them go to UFC or PFL or Bellator. That's why I want to see how more of them in this environment where they go for a takedown, they have and it gets blocked,
Yeah,
they
you
can
eat a
get kicked
knee.
in the face. I want to see what happens. I want to see more of like, and I don't know, maybe that's why we're not getting those Dagestanis, because they don't fight, they don't train for that type of offense.
Let's face it, it's also hard to import them as well. You have to have them fight in certain countries. Saudi
Yeah.
Arabia or UAE. A lot of them can't even enter the US, let alone Japan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Because it does create there's nothing worse than watching a UFC show and you're watching the guy, he wants to knee him, but
Yeah,
he just has to
has to
kind of
wait.
just like hold him.
Up against the cage.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. I mean, so that's top 25 reasons why you should be Rizin. You should be watching Rizin. Number 8 hopefully shocked you.
Yes.
King CeeLo, where can people bother you?
Yeah, you can bother me in the Rizin Discord that we have, the War Discord, as we like to call it. There's great discussion in there. You can talk about Rizin any time of the day in there. We have a bunch of people from different time zones. It's just a great place to have Japanese MMA discussion, kickboxing discussion, or UFC discussion. So I believe Discord is really the best place to have a fan base these days. The days of the Sherdog forums are over.
Thank God.
Discord is the place to be, and go to the War Discord.
Wargord, yes. Daniel, where can people bother you?
You can find me, of course, on a Discord. Both we are rising. We are rising Discord and the Beyond Kick Discord, and also, of course, on Twitter, where I'm posting a lot of stuff in English because there's not many people in Poland that I can talk about Rising or even foreign kickboxing. Of course, I have also an Instagram. You can follow me. Typing Daniel double space D. I'm posting usually personal stuff there, lifestyle stuff there, and I'm advertising my broadcasts via Insta stories as I'm doing it on Twitter, because I'm also a kickboxing and MMA commentator, and soon Taekwondo commentator.
Yeah, can you
Because
talk about some of the promotions that you broadcast for? You have like at least 5 promotions, right? KOK.
I have been counting this, and right now it's something like 8 or 9.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I don't know who else broadcasts more promotions.
Can you commentate for Rizin?
But I will tell you this: since the last month, we have started to broadcast the PFL and Bellator event.
Oh, that's even better.
And,
so you're trying to get it on there?
I'm eyeing on New Year's Eve, because I think there's a good chance that they will air the whole card on New Year's Eve, and I'm really looking forward to make a commentary.
Just
for the first time.
Hope you read that contract, and I hope you get paid.
I hope so.
That's all I'll say.
I hope so.
You can follow co-host J. Christian Gary, Twitter X at J. Chris Gary. He has a link tree for Focus Fights where you can find all the cool Focus Fight stuff, which I guess the King CeeLo, I guess also you kind of are Focus Fights.
Yeah, I'm kind of like a founding member of the Focus Fights. So we're trying to really get it restarted. We used to have a great website 5 or 6 years ago with Based Megaton. creating great articles. He's one of the first people to ever write about Kai Asakura in English. Those days were kind of the peak of the international
Kana's
scene.
brother, Kai Asakura.
Yes, Kai, yes. The Asakuras, yes. All Street Fighters, including
Yes.
Kana.
Yeah. So yes, I hope we get to see more of that from you guys somewhere down the line. And you want to follow the pod Twitter thing? We are Raja Pod. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope those are the reasons you can find one of those reasons to watch Rizin. If not, just watch it one day. Find an excuse to watch it. Other than that, everybody who joined, take care. Thank you so much for your time and the support as always.